Welcome to the Near Memo, a weekly conversation about search, social, and commerce. What happened, why it matters, and the implications for local.
I'm glad I didn't have to take credit for your idea, Mike, which I never would have done. But so Mike's article forthcoming, I was lucky enough to get a preview of the draft, and I think, Mike, you make the really interesting point that Apple is positioning itself or staking a good chunk of its sort of company bet on the future on AR, augmented reality, as opposed to what we all talked about with Facebook as far as VR, virtual reality. So Apple is betting on making a better reality as opposed to an alternate reality that is digital, which Facebook seems to be doing. And that tied in with an article from John Hanke earlier this week, or maybe it was last week. The former Niantic Labs, or I guess current Niantic Labs CEO,
former Google Maps.
Former Google Maps, so basically the inventor of Pokemon Go, if there is a single person who invented Pokemon Go. And so that strikes me as a real interesting sort of very different worldview of the future of how digital either shapes or replaces reality in the future. And I think it's a really interesting position for Apple to stake. I also want to throw in one more thing before I hand it back over to you, Mike, to explain more about that. Kind of ties in a little bit with Google's recent labs reorganization that they announced, where I don't know how to pronounce his name, unfortunately, Clay Bavor, who ran a lot of important projects at Google, some of Google's best products, and has been responsible for their. Greg, you and I were blown away by the demo of this sort of very realistic three-dimensional video conferencing system. So he's now in charge of this new AR VR division of Google. So not like Google's ignoring this, but I think that they're sort of maybe still hedging their bets on which one of these futures might win out. So
it's a good thing his first name isn't Herb.
Herb Avor. Well,
Dad joke right there.
Let me just opine here for a moment, and Mike, you can jump back in. I mean, I don't think these are mutually exclusive. Obviously, the interesting thing will be to see where the traction is, because there are going to be metaverse environments. Gaming is already already there with VR, but we will see certain. I believe there'll be certain limited use cases where VR will be appropriate and adopted, but Facebook's notion of the metaverse, which is just this all-encompassing successor to the current internet, I think that's never gonna materialize. And then another interesting point that was made in one of the articles was that now Facebook and Apple are direct competitors in terms of hardware, their visions for the mixed reality, and so on and so forth. And that'll be very interesting to see play out, because Facebook has far less trust than Apple in terms of
its real world developments. I mean, I don't know if you know this, but I mentioned in my article that by squeezing my wrist and clicking my fingers, I can drive my watch to do things, right? But those actions can literally cause my watch to execute programs or clicks. And that's a critical element of this augmented world that we're talking about, is some sort of wearable that can interact with it. Also, in their new FaceTime and in all their music, their earbuds are now spatially aware, so that you can, when you're in a conversation, you hear the direction the conversation is coming from, even if it's on the screen. And they have the only phone platform that has AR capabilities top to bottom across the whole platform with enough power to drive it. And they also drive their own chip ecosystem. So the heavy power demands of this technology, Apple is in the best position to moderate that through system design and software design. So unlike Facebook, who's trying to build a product or several products, Apple has an ecosystem of hardware and software into which AR is already there and being developed. And I see it as Above Avalon noted, Apple's game to lose. But I also see AR as a technology and not what Apple's going to focus on. When you look at how these companies think about this stuff, you look at augmented reality, for example, and I think Amazon thinks about it as augmented commerce, and Google thinks about it as augmented search, and Facebook thinks about it as augmented Zuckerberg or augmented Facebook, or whatever. But Apple thinks about it as, and as hubristic as this may seem, as their ability to augment humanity using this technology. So from Apple's point of view, they are likely to come out with tools or series of tools that use this, but don't focus on this as the primary benefit. And I could see this as being value in medical care. I could see it as being value in exercise and personal health, as well as driving and all that sort of stuff, and mapping, particularly useful in mapping at an individual level as well. So I see this technology is spread across their whole platform and useful across their whole platform to people in a not obvious way, right? We'll see.
We won't talk about all the Black Mirror like privacy implications of all of
yes. This. Well, just because they think their vision is less dystopian doesn't mean it will be less dystopian. Yeah. It could be equally dystopian.
There's no question that augmented reality has some very interesting use cases and will be valuable in a lot of situations. We just need to be thoughtful and careful. I mean, I'm struck by how alarmed some people are about the Facebook vision for the metaverse. I mean, you know, they're extrapolating from Facebook's kind of current bad behavior into some addictive future, all-encompassing future. And people are saying semi-hysterical things like, you know, it has to be stopped, that kind of thing, you know, which is kind of interesting. I mean, I don't know whether we're talking about a 10-year time frame, a 20-year time frame. Some version of the metaverse will come to pass, and whether it will be truly dystopian or only somewhat dystopian is another question for another time, I suspect. But I'm excited to read your articles, Mike. I haven't had a chance, and I'll be doing that after we conclude today, and looking forward to publishing them probably early next week, I suspect, since today is Friday. Be
good Thanksgiving reading with your scotch around the fire. So,
you're going to be in Portugal for Thanksgiving?
No. I'll be back in California with my family. I'm only going to be in Portugal for a couple of days in search of my ancestors. So I'm going on a personal journey there.
I did remember what 42 is, which is this current episode, The Meaning of Life. It is from The Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy.
Yes. I did know that reference.
A movie. So
I did know that reference.
42.
I think that was mentioned before we ever got on, just for people who don't have it. For people who think
there was not a segue there whatsoever.
Well, it's a close. It's a close.
That's right.
We're talking about the meaning of augmented life.
That's right.
That's okay. All right. We'll have a great.
For those of you who missed it.
For all our American friends, have a great augmented Thanksgiving.
And great real Thanksgiving as well.
Yes.
Same to you guys.
Thanks for joining David, Mike, and Greg. To stay on top of the latest developments in local, subscribe to our newsletter at nearmedia.co. We'll see you next week.